The primordial Forbidden Land, one of the 7 great life-restricted zones, has always been known as a place where those who enter will die. Before countless witnesses, Yi Fan rode the bronze coffin drawn by 9 dragon corpses, crossing the starry sky through the 5-colored altar. Shocking everyone present, the altar and the Bagua diagram remained suspended, indicating that the spatial traversal was still in progress. Inside, Yi Fan relied on the secret method taught by the Black Emperor to forcibly alter the coordinates, reversing his trajectory in an attempt to return to the ancient planet Yingzhou. The process nearly failed when the bronze coffin and dragon corpses suddenly reappeared, making everyone think the traversal had collapsed. However, he ultimately succeeded in changing direction and entered another ancient star route. At that very moment, Li Xiaoman risked her life to charge into the Forbidden Land, using a forbidden artifact to unleash divine light and attack the altar, attempting to disrupt Yi Fan's journey. However, 5 powerful experts acted simultaneously and destroyed the attack. While Li Xiaoman suffered a backlash and vanished, Yi Fan remained completely unaware of all of this. Drifting through the universe, Yi Fan experienced a terrifying and lonely journey: absolute silence, stagnant space, and erratic time flow, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, nearly driving him insane. After enduring a long period of cultivation to stabilize his mind, he finally saw light and escaped from the black box of space. However, he discovered that he had not returned to Yingzhou, but had only reached the vicinity of the Beidou starfield, proving that his attempt to reverse direction had failed due to the incomplete altar. Stranded in the vast universe, Yi Fan fell into despair, yet continued cultivating while drifting aimlessly. After more than 2 months, he unexpectedly discovered a purple-gold ancient warship drifting in the void, bearing traces of a catastrophic battle from tens of thousands of years ago. Even more terrifying, it seemed that faint life fluctuations still existed within it. In the silent and freezing cosmos, Yi Fan encountered a colossal ancient purple-gold ship drifting quietly. The ship was covered in the marks of time, its hull mottled and damaged, clearly having existed for over 100,000 years. Yet what shocked him was that it still emitted weak but real fluctuations resembling life. This immediately put him on high alert. Something that had existed for so long and still retained signs of life was certainly not simple. He summoned the Mother Qi cauldron of all things to protect himself and held a black gourd in hand. Cautiously approaching, as he got closer, he could feel the terrifying ancient aura of the ship. Its surface was filled with sword and blade marks, evidence of a shocking battle that had once taken place in the starry sky. Yi Fan speculated that at least ancient saint-level beings had been involved, otherwise such destruction could not have spread across the cosmos. After observing for a while and detecting no immediate danger, he decided to enter and explore. Inside, he was astonished. The interior was not like a ship at all, but rather like a vast immortal palace, complete with halls, secret chambers, and endless corridors. There was even a medicinal field, though all the spiritual herbs had long turned to dust, leaving only traces of former glory. Time, as he realized, was the most terrifying force of all, capable of eroding everything. Following the strange fluctuations, he eventually found their source: a skull as white as jade, emitting a gentle glow. At first, he thought it was a surviving life form, but quickly realized it was the skull of an ancient saint, preserved through immortality-like power and thus emitting a lifelike aura. Nearby, he discovered ancient divine inscriptions. After painstakingly deciphering them, he was deeply shaken. The skull belonged to a female saint who had once encountered and admired the great Emperor wuxia. She had traveled across the cosmos seeking enlightenment while also hoping to meet him again. However, the universe was too vast, and in the end, she grew old and perished alone in the cold void. In her final inscriptions, she mentioned the ancient star road, a crucial path in the universe, but lamented that her life had run out before she could continue searching. Moved by her story, Yi Fan took the skull, a priceless divine relic, with the intention of giving it a proper burial one day. When he lifted it, a jade pendant fell out. Instantly, a bone-chilling cold spread through the air. Upon inspection, he discovered it contained extremely pure Taiyan holy power, something that could only originate from the Taiyan true scripture. He speculated that it might contain a Tao technique once passed down by the great Emperor wuxia to that female saint. Continuing deeper into the ship, he found remnants of the ancient battle everywhere: shattered weapons, bone dust of countless beings, including powerful non-human races. This proved the battle had been extraordinarily fierce and involved more than just the human race. In another area, he discovered a fragment of a finger bone that had not fully decayed, indicating its owner had once been unimaginably powerful. Nearby were incomplete inscriptions mentioning the ancient Star Road, abruptly cut off, as if the writer had died in despair mid-sentence. Finally, upon reaching the core of the ship, Yi Fan was completely stunned. Before him were more than 40 massive blocks of divine source, each of which had once sealed an ancient being. If these beings were still alive, they would have been a force capable of shaking all ages. But the reality was even more horrifying. All the divine source had been drained of essence, leaving only dried corpses inside. This showed that these terrifying beings had died long ago, after experiencing some catastrophic event aboard the drifting ship. In another chamber, he discovered an ancient hall where 3 even more terrifying existences were sealed. One of them, a red-haired, thousand-armed demonic god, still retained a trace of life. It broke free from its divine source and launched a spiritual attack. Though weakened to the extreme, it still displayed terrifying power and could even absorb Yi Fan's divine flames to replenish itself. Faced with danger, Yi Fan took a desperate gamble, using his black gourd to unleash a killing strike and sever the ancient king's head. However, the opponent was still not completely dead, demonstrating how terrifying its strength had once been. Realizing he could not prolong the battle, Yi Fan immediately retreated, taking with him a corpse of an ancient king and several precious treasures. Returning to the 9-dragon coffin, he noticed the ancient king did not pursue, seemingly wary of the mysterious coffin. Yi Fan then continued drifting through the vast cosmos, unable to determine his direction, leaving everything to fate. Over the next 3 years, he cultivated in seclusion atop the coffin, repeatedly nearing death and undergoing tribulations in the silent void. Eventually, the journey ended when the coffin collided with and descended onto an ancient planet, causing a massive shockwave. Yi Fan was thrown far away but survived thanks to his powerful body. Upon regaining his footing, he discovered the planet had air, but it was highly toxic, making it a Death Star. However, massive claw marks on the mountains suggested that terrifying creatures had once existed there, indicating the planet was far from ordinary. During his exploration, Yi Fan discovered strange forests of different colors: gold, purple, red, and more. Each forest had a tree king at its center, acting as a ruler capable of launching attacks comparable to top-tier experts. By defeating them, he obtained 5 colored crystals containing pure and mysterious energy. He gradually realized these ancient trees were likely related to the legendary 5 elements divine wood. The deeper he ventured, the stranger the world became. No animals, no sounds, yet plants possessed terrifying power and could even transform into weapons. After days of traversing dozens of forests, Yi Fan collected many crystals and began to question the true nature of this place. Eventually, he found traces of other lifeforms and arrived at a massive mountain. There, he was shocked to see a one-armed old man silently using 5 colored crystals to construct a 5-colored altar. He immediately realized that the crystals from the Tree Kings were the materials for the altar. Although the altar was only about 3 meters long, it was composed of extremely rare materials. What truly shocked Yi Fan was not its size, but the Tao patterns carved upon it, something the Black Emperor had said only a great emperor could comprehend and inscribe. This led him to a terrifying speculation: could the old man be a great emperor? But he quickly dismissed the idea, as such a being could regenerate even if destroyed and would not be reduced to a one-armed state. The old man in green robes exuded an extraordinary aura, seemingly in harmony with heaven and earth, yet completely ignored Yi Fan. A strange voice echoed continuously in the space: "Return to the homeland. One cannot bury their bones in a foreign land." What was eerie was that the old man never opened his mouth. The voice resonated directly within the mind. Sensing something unusual, Yi Fan carefully probed with his divine sense and finally discovered the truth. The old man was not alive, but a divine thought, a remnant will left behind by a fallen deity. Such entities were extremely dangerous, often carrying powerful malicious intent. Fortunately, this one was nearly dissipated, retaining only a single obsession: to return to the Zhuwei ancient starfield. From the repeated echoes, Yi Fan gradually deduced the past. Countless years ago, a deity had died on this ancient planet. Before completely dissipating, it built the five-colored altar in hopes of returning home. But as time passed, its consciousness faded, leaving only a fragment of will endlessly repairing the altar like a mindless machine. Yi Fan stayed on the planet for over a month, cultivating while searching for the god's corpse, but found nothing. He speculated that the body might have drifted into space or been buried somewhere beyond his reach. At the same time, he realized the planet had a unique property: it was heavily aligned with the wood element, suppressing other Dao paths and making cultivation difficult. He decided he could not stay any longer. After carefully studying the five-colored altar, Yi Fan found it was nearly complete, lacking only final activation. With no other options, he decided to take the risk and use it to leave, heading toward the Ziwei starfield. As he infused it with divine power, the altar lit up brilliantly, opening a starry gate. Just as he stepped onto it, a sudden change occurred. The divine thought, previously mindless, suddenly regained a brief moment of awareness. In that instant, the old man unleashed immense power, reaching deep into the planet and pulling out a stone coffin buried beneath, containing the long-sought divine corpse. He then carried the coffin and stepped onto the altar alongside Yi Fan. Though shocked, Yi Fan understood this was the final outburst of a fading will fulfilling its last obsession. He had no choice but to proceed together. Finally, the five-colored light erupted, and the altar activated. Yi Fan, the divine thought, and the stone coffin were all drawn into the starry gate and disappeared from the desolate planet. In the final moment, the familiar voice echoed through the void. Return to the homeland. One cannot bury their bones in a foreign land. Meanwhile, far away in the Beidou starfield, familiar figures such as Ji Zaiwei continued to gaze at the stars, waiting for news. At the same time, the ancient races had begun to turn their attention toward the Ziwei starfield, signaling that a new journey filled with danger and opportunity was about to begin.